Hi, everyone. The Whitey White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to do a review of the film Fury, which came out in 2014, starring Brad Pitt, John Bernthal, Shia LaBeouf, and other people as well. Um, this film is a World War II film about about tanks, and it specifically follows Brad Pitt, who is a first sergeant, top sergeant, and I believe he was first. Anyway, he's in charge of a tank crew, and then you have the three other tanks. That's his tank squad, and you have three other tanks in the tank platoon, and they go on adventures. At the very beginning of the film, um, actually before the film begins, their machine gunner, one of the machine gunners, gets killed, and so as the film is getting started at the beginning, they are joined by Logan Lerman. That's the actor's name, and he is a clerk typist. His job is to type up paperwork in whichever unit that is. And this because this tank squad lost their guys. It's World War II. It's towards the tail end of World War II. Things are really winding down. Everybody's shorthanded. So the would that be the first sergeant, the master sergeant? Anyway, the asshole makes a decision. Says you're with this tank squad, even though he's got no experience. And so they end up going out with him on a patrol, and these not in his MOS, his military occupational specialty. So he's got no training and experience. He didn't go to tank school. So he joins up with the squad, and the squad again it consists of Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, John Bernthal, Michael Pena, and now this Logan Lerman. And then you briefly get to know the three sergeants who, and the platoon officer make constitute the platoon. And the movie goes from there. Should I spoil this film or not? Um, it's a directed by David Ayers. This is an excellent looking film. It had been a long time since a World War II era tank movie. You probably have to go back to the era of black and white or maybe early Technicolor films since we had a film like this. Um, and so to get a modern looking, realistic looking World War II tank movie is a treat. Um, the film looks fantastic. It looks authentic. I'm not connoisseur enough to tell you where the uniforms exactly so, but it looked good to me. Um, the fighting sequences are really well done. You see someone fire the cannon on the tank, and the round goes bursting off the ground and stuff like that. I'd never seen anything like that in a film before. So excellent looking film, action packed. Um, I can't think of anything about the score. I just rewatched part of it. The cast is fantastic. I really like this cast. Brad Pitt, John Bernthal, Logan Lerman, Shia Beauf. They all do a really great job. The support characters all do a really good job. Let me pull it up. There's a guy named Hinky. Hinky. He was in the TV show Justified. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He played Coover in Justified. Oh, I had this pulled up. Um, and he's just this obnoxious, like, big, muscular dude. Um, but within the framework of being believable in the area, I thought he did a really good job. I'll see if I can get this up. But um, from there, it gets a little tropey in that Logan Lerman's character, his name is Norman, I forget his last name. Um, again, he's a fish out of water character, and it's a bit of an issue because you're pulling somebody out of their MOS, you're pulling somebody out of what they've been trained to do, and for the same reason that you don't put somebody in a cockpit of an airplane with no experience, for the same reason you don't put a surgeon and someone as a surgeon who has no experience in training with surgery. You don't pull people out of their MOS because they don't know what they're doing. Brad William Hinkey played Sergeant Davis. I really liked his performance. He did a good job. Michael Pena was in this to good. Jason Isaacs was in this. Everybody in this film did a good job, but those guys stood out in this movie. Shia LaBeouf, I know he's a little bit lately, but this was a good performance by him. He's a good actor. He's a crazy person, but he's a good actor. And isn't it interesting how one usually goes with the other? Scott Eastwood, the son of famed actor Clint Eastwood, has a small role in this film as well. And just a few other just notable faces in the movie. So, as a whole, it's a good movie, but so many war movies, you got to have this fish out of water character so that when everybody's explaining to that guy what he needs to do, like Saving Private Ryan, you had Corporal Upham, you got to explain food bar to him so that the audience knows what it means. It's the point. It's pretty standard for war movies to do this. You either got a reporter like Generation Kill, you got new guys like in Hamburger Hill, uh, you rescue a pretty girl who was taken hostage, something like that, a nurse or somebody, so that again you can explain to the audience via that fish out of water character what the audience needs to know about what these guys are doing because they know their job, so they wouldn't be explaining it to each other. Okay. The problem is that person wouldn't be in that situation. You just wouldn't do this. You're not going to take somebody who's never been inside a tank and put them inside a tank and say do your job. Short-handed or not, you just like have that squad chill until you get the fifth guy you need. Until replacements come in. Something, another tank squad would take the slot for that tank crew, or you take that crew and fill gaps in other platoons until you get back to full strength. Something. But you don't take somebody with no training and put them in your fucking tank. And then Brad Pitt at the beginning of this movie, him and the three other sergeants, they're big, buff, burly guys, and they got a young second lieutenant who's baby faced, head and shaved, uh, looks frail as shit, and they're pushing him around. He's an officer, he outranks them. They don't give a shit. Okay, great. So Brad Pitt will tell this officer, even though Brad Pitt's character is a sergeant, he'll tell this officer to go fuck himself, not care. But on this, he's gonna go by the book because some sergeant said you got this guy with you now. He didn't protest. He didn't go to this captain. Didn't say cross his arms. Say fuck it. I'm not going. That guy's gonna get people killed because he doesn't know his job. We're not going anywhere until you unfuck this situation. It's a little bit contradictory. Now, human beings are walking contradictions, but for the sake of the film, it's like it just kind of it felt a little off. You're willing to break the rules here, but not break them here, or at least not question the order. So, but you need this guy Logan Lerman who plays Norman Ellison is the character's name. You gotta have him for the sake of the movie. So here we go. So they get into some shootouts with the tanks that look great. Combat sequences look great. You get to develop these characters. You both love them and hate them. They're very tough, aggressive guys. At first, they come off as a bunch of assholes, frankly. But then, when you get into their world a little bit, which is the benefit of having that fish out of water character, it's like, okay, you're a bunch of hard nosed assholes, but I can see why you have to be in order to survive. You're not just jerks for being a jerk's sake. You're doing this because you got no choice. It's pure survival. So that part, it's pros and cons. It's like they just would not pull somebody out of their MOS and put them into something you have no training, but it does help the story. So at the end of the day, it's a good film. At the end of the day, it's an enjoyable film. If you haven't seen Fury, which came out in 2014, directed by David Ayers, starring Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, John Bernthal, go check it out. This is a good movie. It's a good World War II movie, good movie in general. Um, as a whole, it's a positive film. Again, yeah, it looks great. The acting is great. all things Hollywood movie. It's great, but it's just like you just wouldn't do some of this shit. Some of the things that need to happen for the story to work just wouldn't happen. So at one point, a German tank on its own, I think it was a Tiger tank, attacks four American tanks, which are Sherman tanks. Sherman tanks, shitty. Tiger tank, awesome. But he's in concealment, fires at one tank, hits that tank, and then comes out of concealment to go after the remaining three tanks. And it's just like, why? You had him. You had him out in the open. You had him. And if you don't kill them all, get a couple and get out of Dodge. Instead, he does the thing you don't do ever. He pushed into an envelopment. And that's how the German tank and his guy, that's how they got killed. They pushed into an envelopment. Don't do that. Don't go forward so your enemy can come around you. Had he sat pat, he'd have been fine. He could have got two of them, maybe three of them, maybe all four. And if that didn't work, you don't get a couple, get the fuck out of there. Instead, he pushed into an envelopment and he died. But the guy in the tank, the tank commander's crew, demonstrating the skill set they have, kicking ass at first. He takes out three tanks, this being the German guy. But then he's going to make that mistake? Not impossible, like everything else in this film. Not impossible, not likely. Contradictory. And again, human beings have contradictions. But the whole film is a long series of it's not impossible, but it's a stretch. So the very opening sequence, there's a high-ranking German officer, I think it's supposed to be like lieutenant colonel or colonel, riding around on a white horse, battlefield strewn with blown-up tanks and dead bodies and carnage everywhere, and he's just trotting around out in the open, a high-ranking German officer. And the tank crew, the tank is called Fury, they're playing possum. They're playing dead. And then when he comes out, they kill the guy. And it introduced, so in Hollywood movie, that's great because you introduce the concept. This is something they like to do. They like to play possum, let the enemy get close, and then take them out. You need to establish that early because that's what they're going to do later. And you got to make it a colonel because if it's just some putsy corporal, who gives a shit? It's not Hollywood. It's not big enough. But would a senior officer be on his own, riding around on a horse? Just assuming all these guys are dead in like the last so many months of World War II, with all that experience, he's just gonna go out there by his own and be that vulnerable. Not impossible. I'm sure somebody who fought in World War II had a story where this happened, and they took that out of that. You know, some guy 50 years later did an interview. They took that story and they put that in their movie. I'm sure that happened, but it's a stretch that it would happen. You know, it's an unlikely scenario. It's a plausible but unlikely scenario. That's fine. That's one. Then the next thing that happens, you get this guy taken out of his MOS and put into a tank squad with no experience. Didn't go to tank squad. Got no experience. No training. No clue what he's supposed to do next. Not possible, I guess. World War II, heavy casualties out of desperation may be, but it's a stretch. Then this guy in the tanker exploded. It's like that. It could happen. Crazier things. But everything that happens, it's like this. It's not impossible, but it's just not likely. And that's the whole story. So the film looks great. David Ayers did a great job. The writing for Hollywood purposes is fantastic in terms of character development and character arc. It's a bit tropey, but everything else is so cool you can forgive that. But it's like if the issue, again, great looking film, good movie to watch, excellent acting. Just this story is so. If you were in the military during World War, if you served the entire war, if you talked to 100 or 1,000 World War II veterans and said, "What's the craziest fucking shit you saw, man?" And they're like, "I'll tell you, man. That's what this film is. And then this would all happen in the span of 2 or 3 days. Every crazy fucked up thing that ever happened happens to these guys in one patrol. It's like each individual thing is not impossible, but that all happened that day. Stretch. I have to suspend my disbelief to the point where I don't suspend my disbelief that much for anybody, even though it's otherwise a really good film. So the final film, at the end of the film, spoilers. The tank has been busted. It can't move. Everybody else is dead. You're down to the last tank squad, last 5 guys in their tank, and they're sitting right at kind of like this road goes this way, this road goes this way. There's a village back here. They're right here, and of course, a German battalion's on its way, 200 to 300 guys. They got 5 guys in a busted up tank. The logical thing to do: leave. They're still down the road a ways. They're still a couple miles away or something. Wander away. Tank's busted anyway. Live to fight another day, they say. Brad Pitt's like, fuck, sanity. What is this, sanity? I'm in a Hollywood movie. Why do the sane, rational thing? So he's like, this is my home. So they decide to stay and fight. Why? Why? Go find the next American you can get your hands on. Dig into a good defensive position, take on that same battalion, and do a lot more damage than you are going to in that fucked up tank sitting out in the open. So they play possum the whole, and then they finally start shooting the Germans, and the whole German battalion's like, "Let's go run after this tank. What do we have to shoot at? With nothing but pea shooters, okay?" And it's just like nobody on either side of this thing would do this. Nobody involved would do the things everybody's doing. You got a bunch of German fucking rifles, I don't know, the equivalent of M1s and shit, just pinking off the tank. And at one point the Germans just get all set up with a heavy weapon and they're shooting the tank. It's like, that's not gonna do anything. Why are you even doing this? So what would you do? You'd sit back for a while, and then a few minutes, later, within what does happen, some guys come up with some rockets, and they start firing at the tank, and that's how the Germans take out the tank. That's not the last thing you would do, the way it's depicted in the film. That's the first and only thing you would do. Everybody else would go chill, have a sandwich. You're just infantry with small arms. You're not going to do a fucking thing to that tank. Go grab a bite to eat. You got to go 200 to 300 guys and you're up against a busted up tank with 5 dudes. Go take a lunch. We got this. And then the dudes with the rockets would come around the rear of the tank and light that fucker up and take it out. It'd take 10 minutes, 15 minutes on the long end, and nobody would get killed in the process. Instead, an infantry battalion decides to keep charging wave after wave after wave so that we can have this cool shit out with all the 30 or 50 caliber machine guns they got on there and the tank turret, and then they got some sort of small arms and throwing out some guns. Here's what we got. Use everything in our arsenal and kill as many Germans as you can. And it looked cool as shit. It looked cool as shit. You got the sun's going down, and it's getting dark. It's dark out, and you got all the smoke and everything. And the building that's right there is now lit up on fire because they're firing Willie Pete white phosphorus into it. So that's lit up. So that's your lighting for the scene. And then through the smoke and the haze with that lighting, the Germans keep coming forward, and it looked cool as shit. And then they're gunning them down, and Brad Pitt speaks German, so the Germans are yelling shit at him. He's yelling back in German while he's firing away at 50 cal, and it looked cool as shit, dude. But nobody would do this. Like, nobody involved would do this, and Brad Pitt's rationale isn't tactical, because it wouldn't make any sense tactically. It ain't strategic, Because it wouldn't make any sense strategically. He's like, this is my home. And I'm just like, oh. So you're going to get all your guys killed. Beyond the whole platoon, the rest of the platoons, you're going to get the whole platoon wiped out today because the tank is your home. Said nobody ever. Like, just no. So, cinematically, it looks great. Performances are great. Story's retarded. It's just retarded. It's still worth a viewing. If you haven't seen Fury, do go check this out. I can't ruin it for you because it looks cool as shit. The actors do a great job. It's an enjoyable film, but nothing that happens makes any fucking sense whatsoever. It's like everything. It's like it's not possible, but nobody would do this in this situation. Just like Saving Private Ryan, it's the same thing. Nobody does this. It's the same problem. The film looks great. The acting is amazing. Nobody makes these decisions because of all the horrible shit that happens to you. That's why you don't do it. But everybody would know that because they have training and experience. But it looks cool. So, Fury from 2014, Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, John Bernthal. Do go check it out. The pros outweigh the cons. You know, it's got flaws, but again, it's it's cool enough. Go watch it anyway. So yeah, it's got my recommend. Still here watching this, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I should say that at the beginning of the videos because nobody's still here. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review. Probably Saving Private Ryan. Cheers.